All right, Danielle. I am so excited about this because I get to share you with our audience. Danielle and I have been friends for a we've been friends longer than we've not been friends now at this point,
I know.
right? Because we met, we were
So
like
too.
18,
Yeah.
19. I think I was 17. No. I was 18 when we started at UNF.
Yeah.
I turned 17. I was 17, turned 18 that summer right before.
Yeah, we've known each other 21 years.
And now I'm going to be 39 and you're going to hit the 40. You are 39, going to hit the 40 this year. So yeah, it's been we have seen each other through some burnout and through some crazy seasons of life through all.
Yeah. What type of burnout do you want to talk about?
I know, right? Yeah. Which season of burnout do you want to talk about?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Right. So yeah, this is, I don't know, just fun for me just because of who you are. So thank you for being here today.
Well, I love you, of course.
Yeah, well, I love you. So why don't you, I read, a little bit of intro, but tell us, so you live in Pennsylvania and you're a mom, and all those things. And then what do you do for work professionally right now?
Sure. So I live right outside of Philadelphia now, originally from Orlando, but made the trip up east just because my husband got an amazing job opportunity that we can turn down. When I came up, next thing you know, I was pregnant and I have a 5-year-old girl who is a ball of sunshine.
She is.
And so when I left Florida, I didn't really know what I was going to do for work, and an opportunity kind of fell into my lap. I was a police officer, which we'll get into probably later. So I had investigative experience and got connected with this company called Godly Response to Abuse in the Christian Environment. And it basically looks at abuse in churches and Christian
Which is what GRACE stands for, right?
Yeah, we just say
GRACE. Yeah.
Yes. So I've been doing that, and I do cultural assessments and a lot of investigations, mostly into sexual abuse. So the police, if their statute of limitations has expired, or adult victims don't want to, or survivors don't want to get the police involved, we will get involved. So I've been doing that 4 years. So I just do it part-time, and the other part is full-time mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can do
the most full-time job you can ever have, right?
I joke that I put people in prison, but being a mom is harder.
I remember talking to you, and you would be like, "Oh, I'm driving down to the jail to take somebody in, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah, I know.
And let's just say you worked in a rough area in Orlando, Florida, for a while. So you have seen some things.
Yeah. So I work for Orange County, which is the sheriff's office there. And I did patrol for 5 years and decided to work in the high crime area because I like staying busy and I like the action. And I say, even sometimes now that I'm not a police officer, I feel like I have to justify, it wasn't 2 calls a day. It was nonstop every day.
Yeah.
And very violent crime every day. Sorry, that's my computer. But so I did that, and then I worked in a night crime unit. I was the first woman on this unit, and that was mostly armed robberies, shooting and stabbing that didn't result in death, aggravated stalking cases. And I did that for a while, and then I went to the sex crimes unit, and that's where I concluded my time at the sheriff's office was there. And then shortly moved up to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. But then so what, now the job you have where you're investigating sexual abuse, a lot of times in churches, then you're kind of the job you had at Orange County, your last job in Orange County led into that, because that's
absolutely
what you were doing in the sex crimes unit. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and the cool thing about this new company that I work for is even looking at policies and procedures to keep children and vulnerable people safe, and kind of catch up the church with the 21st century. Yeah. And teach about victim offender dynamics, what to look for, what we can do better, or anybody can do better, right? So a little behind, not everyone, but a lot of people are. So I really can use that experience that I've had in talking with people for such a long time to this place. So what you're dealing with is trauma day in, day out. So policing, I didn't realize I was an adrenaline junkie until it stopped.
Yeah.
And then just how far pushing to be the best and not wanting to let anybody down. And anytime in one case, there's 5 horrible stories right behind it, and you're the person to fix it. And depending on how many, detectives you have working or not, like it wasn't unheard of for me to work 36 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And like pulling over and falling asleep.
Wow.
Like how many energy drinks is appropriate to drink to stay?
I might have I'm having palpitations. I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah, I'm like, am I dehydrated? Am I dying? At this point, I'm so tired. It doesn't matter.
Gosh.
So in the same time, like working in trauma, especially in sex crimes, like seeing things that like people shouldn't see, right? Or hearing things that
exactly
you're not used to hearing it. And I grew up pretty sheltered. I mean, I had experienced my own abuses in childhood and young adulthood with our spiritual abuse we suffered together, separate. And I was working out like insane to try to meet out my brain needed something. So whether it was training for Ironman competitions or whether it was doing bodybuilding, it was something that also consumed all my extra time while I wasn't working. So talk about burning your candle
at both ends. Yes. So you're in this very, very like abnormally stressful. Like I even think, I worked in the ICU. I mean, like literally life or death situations. I'm calling people's family members saying your family member's going to die. You should get to the hospital, or doing CPR. Like, I feel like there's a level of numbing that you have to do to be able to keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
And I think maybe, mine's a little different, not necessarily that. Yes, there's some emotional component there, but I think at another level, especially in the sex crimes unit, then I would say, at least from an outside perspective, it's like you are working with people who have experienced trauma, and then you are experiencing their trauma.
Yeah, that's secondary trauma, right? And we talked about it's almost like meditating on that trauma. So I remember thinking, okay, I hear the story once, and then I've got to write it down. I've got to explain it to somebody else. I'm going to get calls about that case, maybe from a mother or, somebody asking about it or crying in the middle of the night, not knowing what to do. So it's continually coming up, and it just like settles in your body. It settles with you, and you feel responsible for being the savior for that person. Right. Which is what I did. Right. Like, I'm gonna help you. Even though with sexual crimes and a lot of traumas, it takes as long as it takes to heal from that. And my part was just one part. But it was a heavy burden I put on myself too, and you understand being perfectionist or being an athlete, a semi-pro athlete, that you always striving to be the best, striving for excellence in everything that you do. And it's just kind of that mindset. And some of these things, it's not excellence, it's just boundaries. You need boundaries. And you need someone to talk to. One of the best advice I ever got, and didn't apply it. And now that I look back, I'm like, oh, that was such good advice. Have friends that aren't cops. Have friends that aren't nurses. Have friends that aren't firefighters. Have friends that aren't in your world, so that you can step out and be bathed in something else, right? Except all I had were police, especially when I was in sex crimes, because who do you talk to?
Like who do you go? Yeah, exactly. I felt like that when I was working in the hospital. It was like I talked to the other people that worked in the ICU, you know, like it was not, you're eating dinner and you're talking about the procedure or the surgery or the, you know, and really like, but you know, people talk about like the gallows humor, you know, you joke about things that are not something that are not funny, but it's because
not
not
appropriate.
Yeah, you've got to be able to deal with the things that you are seeing and experiencing. And what am I gonna go home and tell my husband about, you know, like, oh, this,
and I didn't.
Like,
and if I did, there would be like this horrid look on his face, right? So of course I had like some of the guys that I work with, and women that I work with, I was closer with, because we're always on call outs. We're doing searches, we're doing these interviews, you're debriefing stories that you're hearing, and you almost build, and this is the closest thing, and some of this happened even in patrol, especially when you're like holed up in the bushes getting shot at, or you think someone has a gun and you have to go in to a house or, you know, a building or whatever. You kind of build this almost immediate bond with these people, because you're it's like you're in warfare, like in the military. It's the only thing that I could say, explain it, and it's probably not, and no offense to anybody that is military and has been, but this is the closest thing that I could compare it to, was that kind of closeness. And like, it becomes normal.
Yeah.
Who would have thought as a little girl I'd be like, let's look at pictures of penises and compare it to the bad guy, you know, like,
oh
no,
my gosh.
And so one day my husband, who is, you know, the same, and I had a stack of papers in my patrol car, in his unmarked car, and he went to sit in it, and I'm like, don't look at the papers. And he's like looking through them. I'm like, I told you not to look at the papers. And it was penis pictures that I had to compare. I had to go and take pictures of a bad guy's penis to compare it to the images.
Wow.
And he's like, I just don't know how you do this. And so one of the things that, talking about the slow burn, and this is always a good thing, if you know that you tend to overwork yourself, whether it doesn't matter what type of job it is.
Yeah.
Because you all work any type of job. This one just had more, I think, a more psychological impact, because of the darkness that comes with trauma and sexual abuse and manipulation, emotional abuse, physical abuse that we were seeing, and images that you can't take back, right? Our brain sees images, doesn't go away, whether that's child pornography that we had to, that's child pornography, you know, like those things don't go away. But I told him in the beginning, oh yeah, I can work day shift, it'd be great. And, you know, if I start to change, just let me know, you know, like just so flippant. But when it was time to hear him say, you are not the same person. You have no affect. You have no emotion. You don't want me to touch you. You're not sleeping. You want to drink every day. Like, you need to quit.
Yeah.
Like something has to change, or like you need to go to day shift, you need to go back to patrol. Like, this isn't who you are. You're a shell of yourself. Yeah. And you're always like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm in mode to solve this. I'm fine when I need to solve a problem. Yeah. Right. You need a hero and save the day.
You need it. Yeah. I was going to say, you need to jump in to a situation and rescue somebody.
And make the arrest and write the warrant and do those kind of things. But when it's quiet, you know, like there was something like, I'm just driving to work with no music. Right. So, some of the big symptoms, so that was one of the big signs, like I had no emotion, not crying, not happy, especially in the home when everything's quiet, the safe place, right? I started having night terrors. And it was like my dad doing things to me that I'd heard in stories, and it was so real and so vivid. I jokingly am talking about this at work, and my boss is like, you need to go to EAP and get some counseling.
What's EAP?
Like, yeah. It's like employee assisted something. Okay. But it's like counseling, like it's provided by your job because you're affected by your job.
Yeah.
So I go because I'm like, I'm not normal. Like, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
But it was like, just like, did something happen? I'm like, no. And it just was so real lifelike and noticing all these things. So counseling was good. And I was like, I will listen to what she says.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, a psychotherapist. And then things just like, I just all of a sudden started breaking, like
Mm-hmm.
crying randomly. My weight went up. And even though like I really wasn't changing anything
Mm-hmm.
because of the stress.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I have adrenal fatigue. So you're thinking like talking about the stress cycle, which I don't know if you've talked about it yet. And I'm not a specialist, but I do know stress.
But yes, I think you are well versed with stress.
Yeah. When people's like, I'm stressed, I'm like, are you really stressed? You have a stimuli, right? So for me, it'd be like a call comes in, a case comes in, and I'm gonna work it, right? But it never really ends. It just other ones keep coming in. So I'm always in that fight or fight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Me, the fight, right? There's sometimes I'll fly. I have the flight response, but there's freeze. There might be a couple more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your body is always, the old brain is always thinking, I'm not safe and I have to fight to stay safe.
Yeah.
So, like what's being released in your body to fight, you're thinking like, if you're in a car about to get in a car accident, you feel like all the blood go to the center of your body, to protect the organs. You might have the hair on the back of your neck, but this is a constant thing. Even though sometimes there is a gun, but sometimes it's just like, okay, we got to fix it. We got to go. But that never ends. So there's never a there's no closure like of this stress cycle. It's just continuous for a year. Not even realizing that the whole time I was in patrol, like that kept going, right?
Yeah.
So I crying. I remember we got a case, and it was a dad who had literally systematically abused all his daughters, nieces over time. And I remember I found a piece of evidence that was just heartbreaking, and I just stopped. And that's not my typical response. My typical response would be like, gotcha.
Anger, yeah.
But like, you're going away forever. And I couldn't barely do the interview because I was like, you did that, Thankfully he pled guilty, and he didn't have to bring his daughters through that, the court process. But
oh gosh, yeah.
I was like, this is a huge sign. So I ended up talking to like my chain of command, and all of them like, this is normal. There's nothing, like this is how it is. Nobody would help.
Yeah.
And I was like, everyone that I trusted was like, you just need to leave. Because I was like, how do I go from working these kind of cases and then do this? I go to a medical professional who's more holistic but does prescribe medicine, and she's like, you have severe depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And I'm like, from this job?
Yeah.
Like my brain like is messed up. And she's like, you are so like, we need to get you on medicine like yesterday.
Yeah.
So all these things started happening, and I'm like, I'm a failure. Like I've never quit anything in my life unless my body is given out. And I'm just slowly listening to everybody. Like your brain is important. Your body is important. Your marriage is important. Your spiritual welfare is important. And I'm just like, I'm not a quitter. Right. And
I bet there's some, my sound sounds weird. Hopefully it doesn't sound weird on your end, but I bet there's a piece too of like, well, if I walk away, who's going to be here for these victims?
Right. Because I have been told like, you're really good at this. You connect with these survivors. And these are some people that are just ignored. Some of these are not perfect victims. Some of these are prostitutes. Some of these are people that are pain in the ass kids. You know what I mean? That are just like, nobody will listen to them, or nobody will believe them. And I'm believing them. Right. And we get good convictions because I've been taught how to write a report correctly and interview correctly and treat people with respect and dignity, survivors with respect, and believe them unless the evidence proves otherwise. Right.
Yeah.
So then I'm worried about that. I'm worried about my friends, leaving them. How are they going to do with one body down? So I finally was like, I have to.
Yeah.
I have to leave. So the real burnout happens when everything's quiet.
Yeah.
So I have adrenal fatigue. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. My body doesn't respond to exercise. It doesn't respond to eating healthy food. It just is like my metabolism's frozen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I literally could just sit for hours at a time. I was even thinking about checking myself into a facility to get evaluated psychologically.
Yeah.
I got rid of all my weapons because I'd seen horrible things. I'm like, I couldn't do that to my husband. So this is more of an extreme case of burnout, but
yes, but
you
a
know,
real,
yeah. And this
I'm
could
thinking
be
of,
the same thing really in any job, like where
mm-hmm.
there might be like a hostile work environment,
Mm-hmm.
or even teachers.
Mm-hmm.
My sister's a teacher, and it is not uncommon to hear of just drinking away the days when they come home, just because it is so constant.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor said, get a dog. She's like, I'll give you something to do. Get dressed in the morning, walk the dog. Yeah. So we go down to the pound and we find a dog, and I was walking that dog 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go from being so extreme, or your identity as in your job, which I always tend to do, whether it was me playing the volleyball girl until you're injured, you can't play anymore, and the cop, the detective, the badass, whatever, to walking a dog and watching Golden Girls on TV. How do you go from that? A friend of mine says, a badass, you're always a badass no matter what you do at this point. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. So it was slow, and we had a lot of stressors that came with that. So shortly after I quit my job, we moved to Pennsylvania. And then I had a baby, right?
Yeah.
Then I had postpartum. And so it was a process of, okay, I'm still messed up from this job. So then I just started paying for therapy.
Yeah.
And learning that's how important self-care is.
Mm-hmm.
So me walking and I had the ability to not work, right?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't always the case,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not everybody has that luxury. I always worked my whole life, so it was weird not working, but self-care became important. Walking the dog, taking her on 7-mile hikes.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a bunch of plants and started planting plants. When I had Josie, it was get her a little booty in the stroller, even if it's 30 degrees outside, bundle up and walk.
Yeah.
And breathe and listen and kind of do a walking meditation. And it was just slowly but surely like healing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't change the past. I can't change what I've seen, but I can, those things happen. They did happen.
Mm-hmm.
They were witnessed. But I can almost not negate, but just bring in a lot of beauty. So I'm not sitting in that dark place, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love how you said that. Mm-hmm.
Because it was pretty dark, or like when you were working with transplant patients and everyone's dying, you're surrounded by death all the time. You like smell it, you feel it.
Yeah.
You're like wondering, why are you pushing for this person to live when they're going to die? Just please let this person die and be dead, right? And then you were done. Right. So yeah, and I experienced the same thing again when I started working for Grace. I took on tons of cases and I kind of didn't have the boundaries. Sometimes you don't know what your boundaries are until you've stepped over the line, right?
Yeah, until you go,
and I joke about it.
This is crossing a boundary.
This is
I didn't
too
realize
far.
there was a boundary there.
Yeah, this is too much work. This situational stuff that I'm hearing. And now I'm not a police officer anymore. So I don't have the power or authority to write warrants, to make a phone call and get something done. Now I'm listening to these stories and giving survivors power, and that's my part of the story. So even as a parent, like burnout is legit.
Yeah.
Take that 20 minutes. Your kid is fine.
Yeah.
They'll cry and scream and probably throw stuff. Like my daughter, I would lock her in her room and make sure there's nothing in there to make her hurt. She would kick that door at 2 or 3 years old, and I would just be like, outside, she's safe, she's fine, and just breathe and take the time I needed and go back inside, right? Because it's 24/7 being a mom.
Yes.
But that self-care and putting yourself as most important is really hard for women.
Yes. Oh,
Because
definitely.
we've been pushed to take care of everybody. And, um, like I didn't got my hair cut in like 3 years. Like that's how stupid it got. Right.
Yeah.
Or like, when was the last time I did something for myself?
Mhm.
Bought something for myself.
Some
And it
clothes,
just became,
some underwear, some, like basics.
like, how old is my toothbrush? Right. So it became like, I am important. The more I take care of myself, the better I'm able to give to my family,
Yes.
and in my job.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in this job, it's a part-time job, but I really need the space away from it to decompress from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a hard interview. My sister who lives with us and my husband would be like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm just coming down off the cliff. I'm walking
Yeah.
I'm like climbing down back to normal." It was a
Before I
really
come back.
difficult one. And so I might sit here while you're watching TV and maybe be knitting or crocheting or reading a book or doing something else, because my brain literally just has to process it, or I have to do certain things.
Yeah.
So I could go outside, stand barefoot in the grass and
Mm-hmm.
just grounding,
Do some
essentially.
grounding. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have fidgets during interviews. I have a candle, or I might wear a perfume that I really like during
Mm-hmm.
something difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself that I'm not taking full breaths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the stress has been too high. So it's important and almost imperative. And, almost be 40. So I've been doing this kind of stuff for a while now, listening to your body and
Yeah.
hearing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you'll
Which
know, like,
takes
am I taking
time
full
and
breath?
practice and
Yeah.
like you
Where am I
said,
holding
so
tension?
important, even if you've not been a law enforcement officer or something that's
Yeah.
maybe I think sometimes we have this picture of, well, it's just being a mom, it's not that stressful, or it's just being say you work in retail, or I don't know, whatever the heck you do, of like, well, I'm not a cop, I'm not in the military, I'm not in these,
Yeah.
maybe more, but like, you still deserve the breaks, and you need the self-care, and no matter, I was going to ask you too, just from our backgrounds, of you and I both, just coming from a church background. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I saw, not funny, but someone that I know shared a post from a very conservative male figure in the conservative world. And it was like, the post flat out said, it is wrong to put your needs above your family. And it was a guy that posted it. And I on one hand, I understand the heart behind it, of like,
Right.
but on the other hand, I was like, and there is the millions of women that see messaging like that and stay stuck because they don't give themselves the oxygen they need, because they should be, throwing themselves on the coals for their family.
Right. Making that Pinterest home.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Or just that. I mean, I think there's that expectation of like, it is the right thing for me to do, or is more,
Right.
Of like, I'm not a good mom unless I am doing all the things for my family. And literally,
Right.
I'm getting that from leadership influences in my life telling me that.
Yeah. And it could be what you're hearing from, I think when we were at the church together, it was a certain type of woman that was held to higher regard. And I just didn't feel like I fit that. And I tried, and I'm like, no. And good for you if that's what you choose. Like, I wish you well. I do not want that. And you know what? We're all different.
Yeah.
And I took a path, and it was joked that, I'm different, or I'm more manly, or it was like, oh,
Yeah.
she's just different. You're so crazy. Well, okay, but I'm not miserable.
Yeah.
Maybe I am miserable. But
I'm figuring out
choices.
the way I'm wired and what works for me, which maybe it's different from you.
Yeah. And like, I was scared to be a mom. And if any of the women out there are scared to be a mom, like, it is scary. And it was very scary. And maybe it was because if I knew too much, right?
Yeah.
Or as a
Yeah.
mom, as a nurse, you knew like everything that could go wrong. And but just like the loss of freedom and the loss of independence
Oh
and
my God, so
choice
much.
and sleep, and can I go to the bathroom in peace? And you know what? It looks so different. Like I take Josie everywhere. Now, granted, in the beginning, there was a lot of fits. I'm like, I'm not going to stop doing what I want to do. Like if we're going to go to the park, I want to go visit this other park. Let's go for a walk. You know, whether it's putting him in the backpacks where you put the kids in, or whatever, strap on. That's just something word you want to use. Whatever device you have to carry your baby or your child.
We get it. I always call it the
Bumbo,
front
not
pack.
Bumbo.
My front pack, my little kangaroo pouch I put her in.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, and like I had a hiking one that like it was like a backpack that I put on the back, and just take her a wagon, or you know, and we'll just
like
go.
We're going.
Like I need to get out in nature, and you're coming, right?
Yeah.
And this little Josie had her little boots, and she had a little backpack. Now my baby's big, so she's really strong. But she would go 4 miles and like whatever snack she wanted.
Yeah.
And I know plenty of people, like some people that we've met in the recent past, that take their kids on the crazy adventures. And I was like, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not in this house.
Yeah.
Like I'm still Danielle, and I'm a mom. But I'm not losing. I'm not going to be a martyr mom.
Yeah.
So don't give up, whoever you are. You don't feel guilty. You need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that will make you a better mom. And so even, you know, mom, like stress from like not having enough money, or where that can wear on you and cause you to lose your mind.
Yeah.
Right. Or, you know, there's just so many different things. So I got off social media because the expectations, I don't do well.
Yeah.
And I get mad jealous, especially the fitness girls that when I was doing bodybuilding, right? And it's just not, I will compare myself, and I still work on that, right? But for me, it's just not healthy. And with the political climate, like it's just not helpful.
Yeah.
I still look at news, but so those are things that I have to do, but not everyone has to do that. But yeah, there's so much on self-care, and find what works for you. You know, the other night I was just so tired and just over the mundaneness of life sometimes. Like my feet hurt so bad. So I had these Aveeno booties, and I put them on, and it's like 45. I'm sitting there like with everybody, and my feet felt glorious. And I'm like, I feel so much better, right? Or getting your nails done. Like you look at my nails right now, I have one on my thumb and one on my pinky because they've all chipped up. I'm like, I need to go back.
Yeah.
I still feel
I've got the stickers on right now. Like
I love the stickers.
Yeah, whatever you call them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was never, you know, when they were like the MLM, like the Color Street, I was never into them then. But we had, my niece got married, you know, she got married this weekend. Can you believe that? Yeah, and I was like, I need my nails to be done, and I'm terrible at painting them, so I did some stickers on my nails.
People never know when I wear this. They're like, they're not great. I'm like, they're stickers.
Yeah, and they don't even cover my nails all the way on some of them.
No, people don't know. You don't know. So yeah, so like little things, like I think we even talked about being a mom, like getting your hair cut, getting your hair done, taking a shower,
buying underwear.
Buying underwear. You're like, am I wearing pajamas like for 3 days? So, you know, it is possible to feel like life is worth living.
Yeah.
You can come out of that feeling like stuck in that awful rut where everything feels like impossible. I just feel like a lot of time burnout for me was just very depressive. It was depressive. Very anxious, where, you know, I'd have like, if I was in a big crowd, I'd start getting rowdy, and Tom would be like, calm down, don't try to fight anybody, which was also scary because I'm not like that. Imagine trying to fight with people. So get help, you know, and it could be something simple as like with workouts, you've worked out too much and you don't want to do any more workout again.
Yeah.
Or cycling, you never want to get on a bike again.
I think getting help looks different for different people. And I was just thinking of too,
Yeah,
of
it
like,
does. Like whether it's
trusting
coach.
yourself and being your own advocate of like, cause you, like you said, you went to your higher ups and they're going, it's part of the job,
Yeah.
versus then finding help and saying, this is not normal. You actually.
Oh, and I was kind of nasty with them too, because I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is not normal.
I feel like I
was
remember
not like
too
this before.
when you, I remember when you left and like everyone had like basically your whole unit had a psych eval, everyone had PTSD,
Oh, yeah.
Like that's what I remember from you when you were
Yeah,
leaving.
we did. We just did online stuff. Most of us were medicated, which is a big sign that something's not right.
Yeah.
Or there were some of them that were drinking insane amount of alcohol at night. And I'm like, how are you functioning?
Yeah.
Or just self-medicating, or having affairs, or trying to feel alive in some way, or calm the noise, right? So it was, I'm like, this is not normal. And typical with a lot of businesses, and I don't know how it is now, but there's a knee-jerk reaction when something happens, right? When somebody tries to hurt themselves, or somebody makes a bad choice in the field. So, and I know there are a lot of agencies that are trying to combat that, but yeah, help might look different. So I didn't get counseling right away. For me, it was going to the doctor and getting the medicine.
Yeah.
For me, it was getting the dog and going on walks and trying to find something, right? I joke that I'm kind of Little House on the Prairie because I know how to do random grandma stuff because I learned from my grandma.
Yes.
So I made like 5 blankets. Yeah, I made so much stuff, and I was like doing flower arranging, and I was like potting plants. I was growing lettuce. I was like just doing all kinds of things that were practically free or close to free, right? To try to figure out like how to spend my time. And then when I was ready, I did something else.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's kind of for me, because, when your brain's ready to process something, it's kind of like, okay, it's ready. So you might remember things that you forgot, or like with different contexts or with age, you might be like, oh yeah, that was abuse. That was bad. Right. And so you, or this was not a healthy atmosphere, or that person was horrible. Why did so all these things will come out eventually, if that's your situation. But a coach, like one of the things that I did with friend Morgan, was I met her through Lori, and she was going backpacking, and we were doing like a spiritual retreat. And I'm like, I don't know this person. And I went backpacking in the Cascades for a week with strangers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it, and I had nobody to do it with. And I'm like, I'm going with these people. And it was transformative. Yeah. And one of the crazy things that happened, and it wasn't like Christian spiritual, it was just a spiritual thing. More, right?
Yeah. Whatever you believe.
I never would have,
not your speed.
Yeah. But it was fantastic. And you know what? Just being out in nature and being on these trails and seeing these things that you wouldn't see from the car, carrying a backpack, which I'd done before. I've done some backpacking in the past, but had it been 10 plus years, I had always had lower back pain, always. And it was from like carrying a gun belt, from volleyball, from lifting weights, whatever it was. And I had put on more weight. I had a huge baby, so I was thinking all these things. Yeah. I came back from that trip and that was gone. And I have not had lower back pain since. It was like every day sitting on a heat pad. Yeah. In the morning.
You would think going hiking would not take your
sleeping on the ground. Sleeping on a little pad.
Yeah, just like how pain. I think, like you were just saying, how everything you had experienced was being stored in your body, and that's
so we're not even talking about familial struggles with family. We're not talking about spiritual abuse that had since I was young. We're not even talking about all those things that, as a little girl, the things that you might hear from people, whether it's being sexualized young or being told these curses. I say they're curses, like you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not
beliefs. Yeah. Beliefs.
You have too big of a butt. You have
people putting beliefs on you
that are not true. And you take them as true, right? So in that case, I knew my spirit, I knew my soul needed to be outside. And I'm like, I even told everyone, I'm like, I might sob this whole time. It wasn't hard. I was like, this was awesome. There were so many bugs. I had to wear a bug net around my head, and you can like swing your hands and there's bugs. Not bothered. Not bothered. On my period, out in the woods, having to shit in a hole. Okay, no problem. I was just so glad to be out.
Yeah.
And I think it just did my psyche good. Like it just did my whole soul, person, whatever. It did it well. So, and I made that decision, and I was like, this is a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I had support from home. Like my husband, even my sister was like, I'll put it on a credit card.
Oh,
You know, like you
Ash.
need to do, if you don't do this, we're going to pay for it, which is a huge
Yeah.
thing. You know, my
That's
sister
amazing, having people in your corner.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, you know, having the support makes
All the
it a lot
difference.
easier.
Yeah.
But having a coach, having a therapist, having a psychiatrist, having someone who does not know you, who is not judgmental, who is going to walk you through it. And you know what? You might talk to that first person and you're like, they suck and I don't like them. Then
Yeah.
find
And
somebody
you
else.
got to find somebody
It's a
else. Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to go on mental health meds for depression, anxiety, PTSD, and the first one doesn't work, don't give up. Try a different one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the over-the-counter stuff doesn't help, like if melatonin doesn't help you fall asleep anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or different things aren't helping, try something else. Like find the doctor that suits you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go get acupuncture to help, get acupuncture.
Go do it. Yeah.
You know,
Whatever.
like,
I think whatever you're being led to, you know, like we know ourselves better than anyone, and like trusting yourself that you know the next step to take. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know there's, you talk about like even acupuncture, if you go for massage therapy, right? With someone that really knows what they're doing, it is not unheard of for people just to start sobbing.
Yeah.
The release of tension, the release of pain that gets stored up in the body, which is interesting in itself. That can be very emotional.
Yeah.
But you're like, wow, okay.
I
But
thought I was just going to getting a massage. And, yeah. I know. I've had things like that where I'm like, why am I crying?
Yeah. And it's gonna, if you don't deal with things, it's just gonna come out, leak out whenever it wants. And you can't control that. So you might as well deal with it on your own terms, whether it's, you know, I've even tried hypnosis. So you just don't know and value yourself enough to say I'm worth it for myself. But for me, one of the things was like, I want to change things for Josie, for my daughter, for my kids, right? Change the patterns and how I see myself, how I view myself, like be more balanced. Yeah. Balance is like the key word, right? And enjoy life and being like excited to live, right? Yeah. There's so much pain and suffering, but why am I? Yeah, I'm not going to live miserably. Yeah. If I don't have to, right? You can be simple and for free, be happy or find joy, you know, whether it's like me and Josie finding worms under rugs, you know, maybe that's not you, but that would be like, that's a fun time for us. Yeah. She loves it. She's 5, everybody. She's not like 15. So, you know, or if it's planting plants or, you know, I put a bird feeder up and looking at the different birds that come out.
Yeah. I always think of nature as like I'm wired this way. I need to get outside. Like if we've been inside too long, I'm like, we've got to get outside. I got it. Like I put the kids in the stroller. We've got to go. Got to get outside.
And for me, it's spiritual. It's a spiritual thing. So that's where I feel closest to God is outside, not in a building. Not with someone telling me what I need to believe or not and wanting my money. Right. Yeah. But for other people, that might be where they feel God. I just don't right now. Right. Yeah. But there's science and there's studies that have shown that religion and spirituality can be very healing for people and helpful to get through hard times. Yeah. So you can't discount that. It doesn't say what faith, right? But it just says it is comforting, right? Yeah. So for me, that's outside and I can calm my heart and do like a walking meditation where you're listening, the repetitive nature of walking and breathing and just centering down. And even though it's almost second nature, like you don't even realize and all the benefits of walking anyways.
Yes, definitely. Well, I wanted to, just in case somebody hears this episode and they may be in a church in a situation where there is some kind of you know, whether it is sexual abuse or is psychological or something like that. And they don't even realize like that there is help out there. Maybe, can you want to just plug Grace a little bit and what somebody might do to get, in touch with someone?
Right. Yeah. So, typically we're hired by the organization itself. But if you have questions or your concerns, I would go to our website, which is www.netgrace.org.
Which
there's tons of resources.
We'll link it so people can just click on it.
Yeah. And you might not even, you might have like this idea, like something's just not right. And you might not be able to pinpoint it. And there are people that that you can contact through that, or Lori can even provide my contact information and we can chat about that. And the cool thing about the organization is that we also partner up with different faiths. So we do have other connections. I believe so it's not
just Christian churches.
Yeah. So we do also, we have connections with the Islamic community and the Jewish community. So there's kind of other organizations that we kind of just keep in touch with. So if you're not Christian, or, you know, you might be in a different place, we might have other connections for you to help with that faith.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was funny. It was good. I feel like I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to listen, you know, just obviously since I've known you so long, like, you know, I was like, I already know the backstory, but I still feel like I heard you maybe tell it in a new way today and just
good.
Share your story again.
Yeah.
Today,
I'm like, what trauma do you want to talk about? What burnout?
One of Danielle's, what would I call that? Like one of your giftings is just your humor, I would say.
Yeah, because if you're not laughing, you're gonna cry. You know what I mean? Like you have to laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel like crying, but you know, it's just
laughter's medicine though, right?
You know, and it's given me these beautiful,
I know, you and me both. You and me both, girl.
And I'm like,
and the Botox doesn't even take care of these ones. I've had it done before.
I haven't tried that yet.
For me, at least for me. I think for other people it works, but for me it did not. On the eyes.
Well, they're beautiful, and I love.
I just smile a lot, right?
Yeah, and we were in the sun worshipers.
Florida girls.
Beach community that we lived in, and fantastic.
I love you. Thank you for sharing your story. And I know everybody's gonna, I really hope somebody, you know, that needs to hear about Grace, here's this message. And
and if they have any questions about sexual abuse, or even like how to talk to kids about protecting
the book.
bodies.
How about I will link that book in the show notes too. Remember you told me about that book, and I bought it for my kids about how to talk to kids about how to protect their bodies.
Yeah, and I've got a couple more resources that aren't like a Christian resource.
Okay.
But that do talk about the same thing. Because I'm just thinking, like, how do you talk to your kids? How do you talk to your teens? How do you talk to them about protecting their bodies and keeping them safe? Boys and girls. Yeah. So
send me those and we'll link them so that I think people will grab those for sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.